Across Europe, riots are erupting. People are protesting and furious over the extreme COVID lockdowns that are coming into effect. In the Netherlands, a third night of rioting is expected, and we've seen some of the worst lockdowns ever done in Austria. First, they said, we're doing a lockdown only for the unvaccinated. That is, if you are not vaccinated, you cannot leave your house. Whether or not you could leave your house actually will be determined based on the capacity of local hospitals, but for the most part, it meant you can't leave. Well, once people said, okay, I don't want to be locked in my house, I'll go get vaccinated, they did. Austria, with only a few weeks, announced, you know what, we're doing a full-scale lockdown anyway. We've seen the videos. Austrian police walking around saying, papers, please, to random people. And if they don't hand over their papers, they get in trouble. They could be fined. They could be detained. In Australia, not Austria. We've seen it in Austria. Now in Australia, we're seeing the worst it has been anywhere. And I'd like to give a good shout out to our good friends, the spineless cowards over at Quillette, like Claire Lehman, who said these camps that are being built are simply international arrival facilities. I don't know if it was her who exactly said that, but I was criticized by the folks at Quillette, which is supposed to be some intellectual dark web, pro-freedom, pro-critical thinking outlet, for saying that what they were building in Australia were concentration camps. Now, of course, I was trying to evoke some emotion by calling them such, but I didn't call them death camps. They're just taking people for dubious and arbitrary means and then transporting them to camps. Now, of course, at the time, they said all that's happening is that when people fly into Australia, we put them under quarantine to make sure they don't bring COVID here. Now, that's not reasonable. It wasn't reasonable anywhere it's been done. It's been overreaching and insane. But I said, look, it's only a matter of time before they start taking people who are sick and bringing them to these facilities. It's only a matter of time before protesters come out and say, we will not tolerate this authoritarianism. And they say, oh my, that protest you had was a super spreader event. You're going to need to be hauled off to these quarantine camps for an indeterminate amount of time until we deem you safe to be returned. We already saw the video of a man who was sneezing and coughing without covering his mouth in an elevator. Admittedly, dick move. But he went to a hotel to quarantine, and the media said he was fleeing. When the police finally tracked him down after a manhunt, people were cheering outside as this man was being hauled off by police. In another video, a man in Australia has the police and a medical vehicle pull up abruptly. He has no idea why. And they say, it turns out one of your COVID tests came back positive. So we're quarantining you for an indefinite detention. We're taking you for an indefinite quarantine. All the while, all of these people cheer. And the likes of Quillette and many people in Australia say they're not concentration camps and no one is being hauled off to them. Well, you saw the headline. I apologize if 3 minutes is burying the lead. But the Australian military is now rounding people up and bringing them to the concentration camps. I will not mince words, nor will I give the benefit of the doubt to the Australian government when all of their sycophants and spineless cowards just say, we're doing the right thing by keeping the numbers low. You're sending out the military, the ADF, the Australian Defence Force, to take people, not who have COVID. No. Not who have COVID. These are COVID suspects. Close cases, they call them. People who may have had contact with someone who has COVID. You need to be rounded up as well. Are we supposed to just take the government's word for this in Australia? Well, my friends, you and I do not live in Australia for the most part. Some of you do. And if you do, I fear for you. I really do. I hope you get out of that country before it's too late. You know, a lot of people say you shouldn't compare it to World War II. And I say, well, I'll tell you this. There's a possibility, a potentiality that it stops here, right? That Australia is just in the Northern Territory rounding up some people, 38, mind you, suspected of being in close contact with someone who has COVID. They're rounding them up. You know what? Maybe it stops there. I think it's already bad enough, but maybe it stops there. Maybe they start easing the restrictions and everyone goes back to normal. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it doesn't. I wonder what it was like in World War II when you had many people in Germany say, you know, this is the line for me. When they start identifying people, this is the line. I'm going to leave. And they did. And their children are alive today because of it. Some people didn't leave. No, the government came and they said, get in the cart, get in the rail car. And they did. They said, okay. And we know what happened next. Now, I don't know what Australia is doing. I don't think it's that bad in Australia relative to what we saw, but hindsight is always 2020. Had we known, had any of these people known what was going to happen to them, they certainly would not have gotten on those train cars. Now, we don't know what's going to happen in Australia, but I tell you this, the lesson should be learned. You do not get on the train car. Don't assume your best interest is at hand. I tell you this, man, I don't know what's going to happen here in the United States, but taking a look at what's going on in Europe and Australia, you better count your lucky stars that we had the founding fathers and the Constitution, because in Canada, it's bad. In Australia, it's bad. In the UK, it's bad. And the one place from the British Commonwealth that said we reject your government, your crown, and we declare independence and we draft a constitution, we're faring better than the rest, albeit still fairly bad. But let's read the news. Let me show you the video. Let me show you the video of this man, a minister, saying thank you to the army for rounding these people up. Man, this guy went on an unhinged rant. If you oppose the mandates by our government, you are an anti-vaxxer. His eyes bulging out of his head. You think I'm kidding? Now, if this happens in Australia, it can happen here. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com, become a member, and help support our work. As a member, you are helping fund our journalism, and you will also get access to our exclusive members-only segments of all of our shows, a huge library from timcast.irl. And I want to point out, we got this story here from Elad, I'm probably pronouncing your name wrong, Elahu. He went down to New York. The We Will Not Comply protest. We, the people, will not comply. We, as a member, you are helping fund that on-the-ground journalism. And we're going to cover the story included in the coverage we have today of the protests. But, you know, when I tell you this story and show you what people are saying, it's thanks to you as members. So if you really want to support our work, become a member. But don't forget to like the video as well, subscribe to this channel, and take the URL. Click that share button, share it wherever you can. Let people know what's happening. If we do not call out these actions now, it'll get worse. And I'll tell you this, we have this tweet from Human Rights for UK in Australia, quarantine camps. The conspiracy theory comes true. Michael Gunner says, we are grateful for the support of about 20 ADF personnel as well as many army trucks to assist with the transfer of positive cases and close contacts. Wake up, world. He said it.
We took urgent action to escalate our response in these communities, immediately implementing a hard lockdown. That means residents of Binjari and Rockall no longer have the 5 reasons to leave their home.
I'm going to pause real quick. The 5 reasons to leave. What he's saying is, well, let me just play for you.
They can only leave for medical treatment in an emergency or if required by law.
You cannot leave your homes in this territory only for medical treatment or required by law. You can't leave. It used to be you can go buy food. Remember that? They said, we're locking down. You can still go outside, go get your food, go to work, do your essentials. Not here, not anymore. It is beginning, and I hope we stop it here. If everyone knows about this, it cannot persist.
It's highly likely that more residents will be transferred to Howard Springs today.
I'll pause right there. It's highly likely that more people will be transferred to Howard Springs today. Let me just show you what Howard Springs is. Quarantine facility. From early 2020, the abandoned accommodation facility became a quarantine facility for people returning to Australia from areas infected with COVID-19. That is not the case anymore, as you just heard him say. The Army is going to be transporting people to Howard Springs, he says.
Either as positive cases or close contacts. We've already identified 38 close contacts in Binjari, and that number will go up. Those 38 are being transferred now. I contacted the Prime Minister last night. We are grateful for the support of about 20 ADF personnel as well as army trucks to assist with the transfer of positive cases and close contacts and to support the communities.
Let me just make it very clear for you. This man, Michael Gunner, said 38 people have already been transferred thanks to the Army to a quarantine facility. Now, I can play games. I can use their language. They don't want to say death camp, right? In World War II, concentration camp. See, that was politically correct. As concentration camp refers to a camp where you take a bunch of a certain type of people for whatever reason and you put them all in the same place. Quarantine facility. International arrival accommodation. They've come up with many fanciful terms for what they've built. There's videos of people saying we don't have food. There's videos of people saying a woman was sipping her tea under her mask and they screamed at her. How dare you move your mask? Do you think it just ends here? Do people believe that in World War II, One day, everybody was eating tea and crumpets, drinking tea and eating crumpets, when all of a sudden a bunch of evil Nazis showed up and said, now we are going to take everybody. No, that's not how it happened. It happened slowly, gradually, and then suddenly. People were watching the changes happen, but they kept saying it can't happen here. They kept saying, well, that's bad, but. Then one day, the trucks came, and they said, everybody get in. Everybody get in. And they said, why? Don't worry, we're here to take care of you. We're going to make everything all right. And they did. And then there was the train car. I said, everybody get in the train car. Everybody get in the train. Why? Where are we going? Don't worry about it. And we know where they went. And we know what happened next. Now, hindsight is 2020. We see the aftermath of what those camps were for and what they did. And in truth be told, I do want to make sure we're not being overly hyperbolic. These quarantine facilities, for the most part, have had many people stay there and then leave. But you see the escalation. At first, in Australia, if you arrived by plane, they'd say, well, you got to stay here. All right. Then they said, now they're saying, we are going to make you stay there. Are we going to assume that it's going to be this easy the whole time, this light the whole time? Or is the issue the con? You know what con man means? It means confidence man. And the reason they say that is because they build up your confidence over time in order to scam you. One common trick con artists do is they'll say something like this. Hey, can I borrow $5? Just $5. I want to buy a cheeseburger. I'll pay you back tomorrow, I swear. $5 is no big deal. So you say, all right, here's $5. Whatever. I don't care. It's $5. The next day he comes back and he says, here's the $5 I owe you. Thanks for buying me that cheeseburger. No big deal. A week later, he says $50. And you're like, ooh, 50, that's a little bit more. It's like, don't worry, dude, I'll pay you back. I'm good for it. And you're like, well, you did pay me back last time. Okay. He pays you back. Next day, he shows up, there's $50. You say, see, look at that. He paid you back. Later on, he says, I need $500. And now you're like, man, $500? That's a lot of money. And he's like, dude, I always pay you back. And you're like, that's true. It's like, I swear, look, when have I not paid you back? You're right. $500, he comes back, he pays you back. You're like, look at this. No problem. Then one day he shows up and says, I need $5,000, man. This is serious. If I don't get my car fixed, if I don't get a new car, I'm going to lose my job, man. Now, look, my bonus is coming in on Friday. It's Tuesday now. I can't miss another day of work, but I'm getting my bonus. I will pay you back, man. It's a big year-end bonus. And you go, he's paid me back every time. You write him the check for the $5,000. He says, you've saved my life. Only this time, you never see him again. You see, what they do is they build up confidence. And that's what we've been seeing so far. Now, for someone like me who understands how those games are played, I look at this and say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, and it's over. It's over. They built camps. The first thing I said was, hey, you're repurposing these facilities to quarantine those who are sick. There's a lot of bad things that could happen here. You could have protests where a bunch of people say we reject lockdowns and mandates. And then you simply go, oh, no, a super spreader event. And then you arrest them all and say you're all close contacts. You all must be detained for your own good. These people are then removed from society. For any amount of time is a problem. Think about it this way. If you have political undesirables, rabble rousers, and they're going online and they're posting memes and they're doing things, well, you understand how the world has worked throughout history and you want to figure out a way to remove them from the political landscape, but you can't do it without causing alarm if you just eliminate or imprison. Here's an option. A quarantine camp. Well, here's what you do. You've got a political season coming up. It's all about math. If you've got 50 people who are left, 50 people who are right, let's put it this way. Here's a better way. You get 20 people who are left, 20 people who are right, and 60 undecideds. You want to make sure the undecideds vote for the left. It's simple. Periodically take someone from the right or 2 or 3 people and quarantine them. This will mean they're unable to engage politically. And you say, look, it's just a quarantine thing. You'll be out of here in a week, man. Calm down. But that's a week where they're not campaigning, not spreading ideas. And over time, this heavily advantages one political faction. Now, I'm not saying it'll be specifically for that purpose. I'm just saying they can use it in a lot of ways. They can remove industries. They can collapse industries. They can control industries. Let me show you the story. This is from abc.net.au. They bury the lead. It's amazing. NT, Northern Territory, records no new cases of COVID-19 overnight following 9 Binjari cases. Now, to me, you know what the headline is. The headline is specifically that 38 people have been rounded up. Yeah, that's not the headline they chose. They say, Mr. Gunner says authorities expect more positive cases. He says authorities had identified 38 close contacts in Binjari, a number he said was likely to rise, who were transported to Howard Springs on Sunday. Mr. Gunner said the cases in Binjari were very concerning, but not surprising. We also have the story, just if it helps, from The Guardian. NT communities of Binjari and Rockall in hard lockdown as COVID outbreak expected to worsen. Australian Defence Force called in to help with transferring positive cases and close contacts. Transfer where? The Guardian. Please tell me where they transferred to. That's an incomplete sentence. Isn't that a little strange? Australian Defence Force called in to help with transferring positive cases and close contacts. To? Transferring, what does that mean? Incomplete sentence. Because if they put camps, people might be like, whoa, you mean the Australian military is rounding up people and sending them to camps? Ha! Sounds a bit like Alex Jones, doesn't it? Oh, I remember back in the day when Alex Jones would be like, they got FEMA camps, people, all over the place. Now, I don't know anything about FEMA camps. I don't know if that's true. None of my business. But I'll tell you this, it certainly is funny that you get Alex Jones years ago saying they're building camps and doing all these things. And everyone says it's crazy, it can't happen here. Well, I'll be honest. In the United States, it hasn't happened, but it could happen here. It's happening in Australia. And boy, does the media not want you to know about it. Now, this guy, Michael Gunner, this is who he is, all right? He is the Chief Minister of the Northern Territory, the 11th, mind you. And this is where he's sending people. This is from ACOM, Howard Springs Quarantine Facility, Darwin, Northern Territory, Australia. Why? These buildings don't look all that bad. They look fine. It's like a hotel, right? I mean, that's what everyone's saying. It's like a hotel. I mean, look at this. Not really a concentration camp. I've stayed there. Much better than being stuck in a hotel room. Yeah. Con man. This guy. I don't believe you. And I don't care anyway. Look at this nice little photo. Are you supposed to, do you expect me to be like, let me take a look, let me take a little close look at this. We got a little welcome bag. Oh, it's a nice little welcome bag. Look at the little roll of towels. You know what? The military rounding up people and sending them to camps, not a big deal. You get a welcome bag. It's great. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? It's coming. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll be happy to be wrong. I made a prediction. I said that they would eventually start taking people for being suspected of being sick, for suspected COVID cases and putting them in these facilities. And it will escalate from there. The government can then label anyone they want as being a close case, and they can round anyone up. They're doing the trial runs right now. I could be wrong about that. Speculation. But the fact remains, the Australian Defence Force, military, just took 38 people by military vehicle to camps. Call it whatever you want. I don't care. That is a fact. Claire Lehman. Someone said, Bernie's tweet, some person on Twitter said, this isn't China. This is the Howard Springs COVID quarantine camp in Australia for the dangerous people. Well, that's where the military just shipped off several people. Claire Lehman of Quillette, September 4th. You see, I responded to this tweet with an asterisk saying concentration camp to make a point. She said the rest of the world isn't pointing at America and comparing its 650,000 COVID deaths to the Holocaust, even though it could. It might behove some on the American right to have a bit more circumspection when making inflammatory remarks, just this. She says, I don't deny that Australia has turned towards authoritarianism in many aspects of its policy. I'm living it. But allusions to death camps is unnecessary. We then have this. Mocked we may be, but compare the death rates. Yeah, we can. But give it a year or two. Now, look, I don't believe the intent of any one of these camps, for the most part, is to, kill people. No, it's to remove them from society. That's a fact, not speculation. It is a fact. The army took people, removed them from society. Now, the reason for that is they say these people are suspected of having COVID because they were in close contact with someone who was. I mean, they're not even suspected of having COVID. Let's be real. These are just people who are in close contact that say, better safe than sorry. You will be removed from society. Now that the government has the ability to remove anybody they want from society under this pretext, why wouldn't they? I think in this regard, they're not going to kill everybody. I think that's a bold statement, simply because it would be really bad for any political goal. I think it will just remove undesirables. This is back on September 13th. Claire Lehman wrote, the international media spotlight has been shining on Australia lately, and not in a good way. Last week, the left-leaning Atlantic magazine published an article that asked rhetorically if we were still a liberal democracy. They're not. That's me adding that. US TV host Tucker Carlson told his audience of 3 million viewers, Australia has descended into totalitarianism. And on social media, popular US YouTube personality Tim Pool likened our quarantine facilities to concentration camps. Yeah, was I wrong? Concentration camp. I didn't say death camp. Yeah, when the military is rounding up people, sorry, you lose that one. But it was my favorite was this Josh Zepps guy who said international arrival facilities. Well, they're not that anymore, good sir. I will also take umbrage. YouTube personality. I'm a podcaster, madame. We have a very popular podcast on iTunes and Spotify. In fact, it was ranked number 44 in the world. YouTube. It's almost as if she's saying that. And I mean this, that was the joke. But I mean, they do this to try and diminish, what I or anyone else may actually say. YouTube personality, as if that's the only place we exist. Yeah, I have 2 top podcasts. Not that saying podcaster is, all that much better. TV host to his 3 million audience. Josh Zepps, he highlighted my tweet. Repurposing outback mining accommodation into international arrival bungalows is not the same thing as a concentration camp. Concentration camps are bad because they brutalize political prisoners, not because they look ugly in aerial photos. Oh, Josh, you silly, silly man. Yeah. Josh, I think you owe me a Coke at the very least because international arrival bungalows? You despicable fool. Your army just took 38 people and sent them there by military truck. So do we call them military relocation bungalows? Is that better for you? Is that better than concentration camp? Incredible. From the BBC, huge protests across Europe over new restrictions. Some protesters threw fireworks at police who intervened with tear gas and water cannons. Demonstrators are mainly opposed to the use of COVID passes, which stops the unvaccinated from entering venues, such as restaurants or bars. This comes after fresh protests in the Netherlands against new lockdown rules. On Saturday, people hurled fireworks at police and set fire to bicycles in The Hague. One night after protesters in Rotterdam turned violent and police fired gunshots. Okay, let's play a game. In Europe, the police are shooting guns. In Australia, the military is taking people from their homes and bringing them to, what was it called? International arrival bungalows? Well, that doesn't make sense. They're not coming from out of the country. They live here. So they're not international arrival bungalows. Are they just military detainment bungalows? No, well, they're not just detaining people. I mean, they're actually keeping there for an indeterminate amount of time. And all of the people are suspected of being in close contact or of having COVID. So it's almost like they're concentrating a group of people by military force into a camp. I wonder what you'd call that. In the Netherlands, third night of rioting over Dutch COVID-19 rules. Riots broke out in cities across the Netherlands on Sunday, the third night in a row that police clashed with mobs. In Italy, amazing, in Italy, massive waves of people. Australia also has mass protests, but don't worry. They can put an end to those mass protests soon because the police in Australia are gleefully rounding people up. There was a man smoking a cigarette I found. I think I mentioned this, and they threw him to the ground, and they love it. They love being the Gestapo. None of these people care about history or read history. They are the Gestapo. But you know what? Let me tell you. If history has taught us anything, it's that these people lose, and they lose bad. When you are a Nazi, a fascist, running these detainments, taking these people by military vehicle, even because I was just doing what I was told. We will hunt you down for the rest of your life. The Nazis, we hunt them down. We just arrested another guy, had him deported. I think he was 95 years old. Sooner or later, all of these Nazis will just pass on of old age, the ones that fled, the ones that survived. But let it be a lesson to anybody who wants to be a racist, authoritarian, fascist, who wants to take people from their homes by military vehicle and round them up in camps. History will not favor you. And you may be a young man, a young woman working for the ADF driving these vehicles, but rest assured, I hope you get the message, because there is not a place on this planet you will be able to run if things turn out the way we fear, you might just drive a truck and say, I just drove a truck, man. I didn't know what they were going to do in these camps. If these camps really do turn, yeah, your life is over today. I don't mean physically, I mean politically. I mean, you'll find yourself standing trial in The Hague. You'll find yourself standing trial just like at Nuremberg. When you are that fascist, when you are that Nazi, and I don't care what ideology you support, if you round people up in this way, it will never leave you. It will be something that you hold forever. In the United States, people are protesting. Our reporter Elad on the ground. 1,000 protesters march in NYC chanting, "We the people will not comply." From timcast.com. The event was organized and promoted by Worldwide Demonstration, which described itself as an internationally syndicated community dedicated to pushing back against COVID-related restrictions. Elad Eliyahu was on the scene to speak with protesters about mandates, the perceived efficacy of the COVID vaccines, and the alternate meanings of My Body, My Choice. We're actually on the ground. We'll get the video up. timcast.com. You can check this out, again, at timcast.com, and by being a member, you can really help support this kind of work. This is a big protest. Look at this sign. No medical mandates. Health freedom now. No digital passports. If we don't stand up, we could end up like any one of these countries. From timcast.com. More reporting you can help support. Unvaccinated pro athletes, truck drivers, and international students banned from Canada in January. The government is reducing the list of people exempt from its vaccine mandate. They say Canada has announced that athletes who have not received the COVID-19 vaccine will be barred from entering the country. While visitors have been required to show proof of vaccination, both professional and amateur athletes had been granted an exemption. As of January 15th, there will no longer be an exemption in place for professional and amateur athletes, said Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino during a November 19th announcement. The country will also scrap vaccine exemptions for military travel, international students, and essential workers. All Canadians will be required to be vaccinated in order to travel both internationally and domestically starting November 30th. Under the country's Quarantine Act, athletes who violate the mandate could go to jail or be fined up to $75,000. The rules could impact teams in the NHL, NBA, Major League Soccer, and Major League Baseball, all of which have at least one Canadian club. Major leagues, including the NBA, NHL, and MLS, have reported over 94% of their athletes are vaccinated. Major League Baseball reports that most teams, about 85%, are vaccinated as well. The upcoming changes to Canada's border testing and entry requirements reflect the next stage in our government's approach as we align with the improving vaccination rates both here in Canada and around the world. I believe we had Viva Fry on. You may know him. He's a lawyer. He has a YouTube channel. It's a great channel, by the way. Great commentary. And we had him on Timcast IRL just about 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, just over, I think it was not last week, but the Friday before last Friday. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he said that in order to come here from Canada, he had to have a letter proving that he was coming here for work, to come on a show, to provide commentary. Much of it, of course, opposed to the current politics. It's happening everywhere. It's escalating everywhere. If history has taught us anything, what is happening in Australia will only lead to dark places. If current history in the short term has taught us anything, it's that nothing is de-escalating. Nothing is de-escalating. Why would you assume it would? It could. Again, I could be wrong. But if everything we've seen is just escalated, why would we assume Australia won't take it to the next level? We shouldn't. We should assume it will, and we should demand an end to it immediately. Now, I'm not Australian. I have no say over what their government does, but the people of Australia are celebrating this. As I mentioned, they were clapping when the manhunt for that man, when that manhunt occurred, and they found the guy quarantining in a hotel where he was supposed to be. They cheered. They clapped as he was carted off. No justice. No civil liberties. They celebrated. We have this clip from ABC, provided to us by RNC Research. Anthony Fauci suggests American will need boosters every 6 months. We'll do it. Now, in the clip from ABC, Fauci says, actually, it's 24 seconds. You can hear it yourself.
We would hope, and this is something that we're looking at very carefully, that third shot with the mRNA not only boosts you way up, but increases the durability so that you will not necessarily need it every 6 months or a year. We're hoping it pushes it out more. If it doesn't, and the data show we do need it more often, then we'll do it.
Every 6 months. That's what he said. Take a look at the news reporting. Wear a mask. Just 15 days to slow the spread. Then it was a year and a half to slow the spread. It was one shot for large, very, very good protection. Then it was, well, you need two. Now it's you should get a booster. In the UK, you need a booster. It's mandatory. Now in the United States, they're saying, we need if you haven't gotten your shot since 6 months, you need a booster. Johnson & Johnson, if it was 2 months ago, you need a booster. Now they're saying, what Fauci's saying here is, if you get the booster, you're probably not going to need every 6 months. I think we've been down this path before, and I think we know where it leads us. You're gonna. That's where it's going. Now look, whether or not you want to get the vaccine, I think it's between you and your doctor. I can't tell you about the efficacy rates. I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you if it's safe and effective. They say it is. The media reports it is, but the media isn't doctors either. You go talk to your doctor. You figure it out for yourself. I can tell you the politics of it will only escalate. And if you don't think so, you're wrong. And I wonder how many people just have not woken up to the absurdities of the lies from politicians and political figures and TV doctors. But this is the wake-up call, man. What Australia is doing. You have been warned. It can happen here. Did you think it would happen in Australia? No, of course not, but it did. And they told me I was crazy and wrong, but I was right. I'll leave it there. Next segment will be coming up tonight at Timcast IRL. We are going to have our post-verdict discussion on Rittenhouse with some key figures. It's going to be really, really good stuff because there's a lot going on we got to talk about. Go to youtube.com/TimcastIRL, become a member, and we will see you all there live at 8 p.m. Thanks for hanging out.